just gonna trust right what you're saying. You never planned. Came through the valley, we walked through the fire. Your grace is amazing. I trust what you're saying. You never planned. I know that you work every trial for good if I stay and be patient. I'm just gonna trust right what you're saying. You never planned. Came through the valley, we walked through the fire. Your grace is amazing. I trust what you're saying. You never planned. I know that you work every trial for good if I stay and be patient. Ooh, yeah, move up, yeah. You kicked out my feet, perfect love, yeah. Darkness and shadows gon' fall in the battle. I think your kingdom is come, yeah. I cannot run, yeah. Surrender, you fill up my cup, yeah. Reason to strive, yeah.
All right, here we are, ready to fire it up on. Oh, Joel doesn't like it when I start the timer right away. Sorry. Ready to fire it up on Pardon the Intercession. We have some topics we've set aside for tonight. Obviously, I am Matt McClure here hosting, and we are here with Joel Stepanek and Jonathan Blevins once again. And we want to say up front, thanks for all the support that we got from episode 1 and the feedback, and we appreciate all you guys working through this with us as we try to launch Little Flower Media and get all this content up and rolling and off the ground. And also, if you have the chance, you can also follow us on the YouTube channel, the Little Flower Media YouTube channel, where we're going to be posting all these episodes and a whole bunch of the stuff that we're doing specifically outside of our daytime gaming streams. So we are looking forward to getting all that going as well. Gentlemen, are you ready to roll?
I am. I have one quick announcement, if that's okay.
Nope. I did the announcements, and just because this is your show and your company,
wasn't on the agenda.
No, go ahead, Jonathan. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Just feel free. People feel free to share as we're talking what your thoughts are, because we are going to take, if there are comments, we are going to take little breaks in between each topic to continue and to read the chat a little bit. So feel free to type in your thoughts, agreements, disagreements, all that good stuff.
All right, well, let's go ahead and fire it up here with topic number 1. Who was on the list to get us started this evening?
That would be me, my friend.
All right, here we go. I am starting the timer after you do the introduction.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So people may or may not already know this, but in December, the United States, along with actually a surprising number of other countries, including Australia, Canada, and Britain, decided to have a diplomatic boycott of Beijing's Winter Olympics. Now, I had to look up, admittedly, a month and a half back when this happened, what a diplomatic boycott is. But basically all it means is that a lot of the government officials of those countries aren't going to be present for the Olympics. So there's been a lot of talk back and forth in our country about whether or not athletes should be boycotting, because as it stands right now, that just means government officials are not going. Athletes are allowed to go. They're allowed to do what they want. Should athletes be boycotting the Olympics? Joel Stepanek.
I think that if you really want to make a stand with something, you have to be consistent. So the diplomats not showing up, okay, like whatever, you're not showing up. And I guess that's maybe a form of virtue signaling a little bit, but it is drawing attention to it. And that's the point of a boycott. Like we're talking about it, and maybe people dig a little bit more deeply into, well, why are they boycotting it? What is some of the reasons behind this? What is China's rights, record on human rights? I think there's a value in having that sort of stand, actually, even though it seems like a little bit weak on the surface. How else are people going to know that some of these things are happening? We get so caught up in our own little world. It's making it a conversation, at least. And I think if the officials show up, it still represents a endorsement diplomatically of some of those government behaviors. Whereas I think for the athletes, it's tough, man, because at the same time, like they've been training for this for how long to show up and to compete, and for an entire country to say, no, we're not going. I mean, like, I think there's a challenge to the athletes there as well, but it could be off base. What do you think?
I mean, I like your point about the athletes. I understand, right, that sometimes, especially in some sports more than others, I'm thinking like gymnastics, especially, and I know that might not be a winter one, but you've got like, or maybe it is, who knows? you've got you would give a very short window of like every 4 years, you're going to go do this. And And there's like peak age when you can be the best at your sport. So I totally understand that part of it. This whole diplomatic boycott thing is weird to me. Like it'd be like Joel, it'd be like you being like, you know what, John, I'm not coming to your dog's birthday party. I don't care.
Do you own a crusty white dog? Because then I'm not coming to that dog's birthday party because I'm morally opposed to crusty white dogs.
And here's the thing, like I could maybe understand athletes going to listen, what China has done and what China's accused of doing, and the fact that they cover so many things up, and the fact that they are threatening other countries with like actual real threats. Not necessarily military threats, but like economic threats. If they're going to do even diplomatic boycotts, is insane and is even more reason why we should boycott. If there were going to be people present, right, they're saying no fans allowed because of COVID, then maybe I can understand an athlete showing up and maybe doing something that could show people why they showed up, but that they're against the things that are happening and the atrocities that could be happening in China, particularly ones that they're often covering up, genocide. I mean, there's a lot of things happening in China that are not great. But since there's no one there, I say boycott it, and let's just put on an awesome version of our own here in America.
Which is totally going to satisfy those athletes that have wanted to compete on a world stage. That's like, hey kids, sorry, COVID means we can't have a birthday party, but everybody will drive by in their cars anyway and wave at you. Come on.
We already had our own version of the Olympics. It was called American Gladiators, and we shot tennis balls at people and did jousting with giant Q-tips. So I don't understand why we even need the Olympics anymore. We've clearly already dominated it as a society, but it does certainly seem like we no longer have the ability to boycott things economically because we're so intertwined in the global marketplace that this is like the easiest way to do it is to be like, well, the Olympics. Like, if you want to make a dent in China, you're going to have to stop buying a whole bunch of products, which would inconvenience so many people, including myself.
Yeah. Hey, Beer Fox said something that I want to follow up on about an idea for the games. I think have each region choose a single city. And I think actually it'd be great I think that's a great idea. Have each region choose a single city to represent them. And then actually have two people, probably like a male and a female from that region, go and represent in the games and probably have them selected. It's best probably at random actually at that point, because then you really get a representation of the people and that region. Let's call them districts.
Yeah, let's call them districts
that way.
Yeah.
But like, what if you just really elevated it and made it like a battle to the death? Elite ruling class wouldn't have to be a part of it, though.
What if the winning district got like extra resources, like food? Like,
that's a great idea. Yeah, I actually think that'd be a really good approach to rationing.
Great.
We could call it the Hungermer Olympics.
Careful. We don't want to get sued.
Yeah, we would hate to accidentally infringe on somebody's copyright with anything we titled.
That's right, with the names of any of our shows or concepts. All right, number 2.
So when we talk about the Winter Olympics, there's a lot of sports that get added or taken away from the Olympics every single year, but the Winter Olympics have some of the most, I think, enjoyable sports to watch. I think the Winter Olympics are just far superior to the Summer Olympics, but that's a different question for a different time. But of the superior sports in the superior Olympics, John, what are the top 3 for you?
All right. Yeah. I've narrowed this down to 3. It was tough because I do like the Winter Olympics, especially bobsledding, due to that amazing movie, Cool Runnings. Just want to give a shout out to there. So
such a 90s kid.
I am. Number 3 is short track speed skating. Now, here's the thing. I'm a huge hockey fan. I love hockey. That skating is a huge part of that. Watching people do like the crazy long track speed skating is wild, but that short track, they're basically running. They're like running with skates on, but then still going super fast. And I think it's really fun to watch. Number 2 is curling. Curling it almost made number 1 for me because it's the everyman sport. Joel, you and I could literally train for the next 10 years and be on the American curling team. And that's amazing. And maybe
we'd have no wives. We'd have no homes.
I think we should do it. We could be Olympians. And then number 1 for me is hockey. The Miracle on Ice was not just a movie. It was one of the coolest moments in sports. And it's unbelievable. I love watching the World Cup for soccer. I love watching that competition of a team sport. And hockey is just so good. We're not always dominating. And so sometimes we're the underdog. And as a Lions fan, I love that.
I liked hockey too. When the Mighty Ducks went to the Junior Olympics, wow.
Amazing.
They beat Iceland. It was incredible.
Was that the third one?
That was the second one.
That was the
second one. Yeah, that was the last one with Emilio Estevez, and then the franchise just sort of tanked a little bit until the Disney Plus series, which was superb. But why? Because Emilio Estevez was in it. Top three. Number one, to number three, I guess, of going backwards that way, is skeleton. So it's like bobsledding, but a one person face first riding at high speeds. Like
Wait, face first?
Yeah, that's how they're at. They get on this. They're going down face first, man. It's an awesome sport. I mean, so I'll see your curling and take you up to skeleton.
It's actually called Death Race. They made a movie about it a few years back. A lot of too much head trauma, I think.
It's awesome to watch. Number two is ski jumping. Again, high speeds, flying through the air. Something that like such a small percentage of people can actually do. And when you watch it, it's like X Games meets the Olympics. It's actually, I think, one of the oldest sports in the Winter Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. But that's amazing. And number one, the biathlon. You ski and you shoot. And I think that is just, whoever came up with that is a brilliant individual. We're going to put you on skis. You're going to ski around. You're going to go to different targets and you're going to shoot them. Simplicity is beauty. Those are my top three. Skeleton.
Somebody in Sweden, I think, came up with
Probably.
the biathlon because you have to ski and shoot.
That's true.
That's the
it
only
was
way
born
to hunt.
out of necessity.
The only way to hunt is to ski and shoot. And so there you go.
Can I just say that I'm glad that you didn't choose half pipe snowboarding, which is just skateboarding for people who are scared of getting hurt.
I'm pretty sure if you hit that snow going 50 miles an hour, it's gonna hurt.
Fine.
I don't know. You can really get up there. And I'm surprised that neither of you brought up ice dancing, which I think is important for ice dancing. The difference between ice dancing and figure skating is what?
I don't know. That's why I'm confused and waiting.
In ice dancing, you are only allowed to not be physically touching your partner for more than 5 seconds. So you have to constantly be connected to that. Yeah, so it's a fascinating element. I'm not 100% sure how the scoring works. All I know is I can't tell the difference between a 0 and a 10.
Has anybody ever lost a finger ice skating?
That's
my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Like that you would fall down and somebody would just
and then you just
right
want to
over
pick your hands up right away. I totally agree.
At least it's on ice immediately.
Skater became contact sport in 1994. That's true.
Was that because of the horrible thing that happened to that person? Oh my God.
Come on now.
That is quite the Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan reference.
Oh my goodness. The whole downhill stuff is nuts.
I'll see myself out. Good call, pause. Freestyle is fun to see people and pull off like a triple rodeo and land like they just didn't do 3 flips and spins in quick succession. Yeah.
I think that's why that figure skating is incredibly athletic.
I think it is too.
It's insane.
I totally agree. I just can't figure out how the scoring works in order to actually choose winners and losers, because it has there's an artistic merit score that's part of it. And so I feel like it starts to lose credibility at a certain point. Plus, in 2004, they had to have shared gold between the Canadians and the Russians because of a judging scandal. Let's move on. NFL overtime rules.
NFL overtime rules. Talking about the NFL. This past week, we had an incredible game with the Chiefs and the Bills, who both went into overtime. And afterwards, a lot of people were talking about how unfair it seemed that Josh Allen and the Bills did not get the ball back. And there have been mounting calls for a change in the overtime rules. But now after that particular playoff game, they seem especially loud. John, do these rules need to change? What do you think?
100%. Here's the thing, Joel. This might be hard for you to believe, but I think that if you look back to our friendship of however many years it's been, double digits for sure, you'll agree. I've evolved as a fan over the years. I used to take it way too seriously, way too emotionally. I still love it, root for the Lions, love all my teams, but my day is not ruined. Now, that's only when we don't lose playoff games, but I'd like to think the same the next time we get there. Here's the deal. I don't blame the game on one call anymore, and I don't like when any fan base does. It's annoying. It's bad. I will feel bad for those people, but that just contributes to a loss, right? The refs contribute. There's a whole game that has to be played. like the Packer game. It's not just the special teams or just one little gaffe that happened. It was the entire performance. There was one part worse than the other, but I digress. So I'm that said, I'm all for making the game as fair as absolutely possible. The Bills and the Chiefs scored 18 points in like less than 2 minutes. That is insane. So who wins that game in overtime? Basically, whoever gets the ball first, which means you're flipping a coin to determine whether or not someone is going to win a game. It's 2022. It's ridiculous. Give both teams the ball at the 50-yard line and go possession for possession until a winner wins.
Your opinion has evolved on sports, but in this occasion, it's wrong.
What?
I just don't, because here's the thing. The Bills were the number one passing defense in the NFL. And not just once, but twice, they failed to stop Patrick Mahomes. They did have a chance before overtime started. They had it after Josh Allen and the Bills scored that first time and went up. And Patrick Mahomes marched right down the field with a couple of passes, some big plays, and they completely choked it out. And inexplicably, Josh Allen and the offense gets the ball back with 1 minute and 2 seconds left, and they go down the field. And all the defense has to do is stop the Chiefs from getting in field goal range, and they have 13 seconds to do it. So to me, they did have a chance. They had 2 chances to salt that game away. I initially was not a big fan. I wasn't happy with the outcome of the game because, like you, I think that was decided on a coin flip. No, it wasn't. That was just how luck went. It goes like that every game. There's always a coin flip. I think there was absolutely every opportunity the Bills had given their skill set to stop the Chiefs, and they didn't. We don't need to change these overtime rules. I think they're good as they are.
So you can't believe that.
Absolutely. Because when you think about it, it's like if both teams were even, like they're evenly matched, but you have to play offense and defense, and it's luck of the draw who has to do it first. Stop them. Hold them to a
But
field.
you could have said the same thing about Kansas City. Like, make your field goal and your extra point earlier, and you're not even in the situation that you were in. So why wouldn't you be a fan of removing luck from the game if you can?
Because there have to be some places where there is human error and there is luck in football. That's what makes it great. That's what makes it
interesting.
interesting.
Coin toss isn't part of that.
Yes, it is. It's a hallowed tradition.
What about this? Each team gets to choose the other team's offensive lineman for a 40-yard dash. Winner takes all.
Or we have them get out and we bring an ice skating rink out and they do ice dancing. And based on a team of judges,
how about we separate the teams into districts, and then the 2 people from me. Okay, I think so. Since we just talked about this, and we're on this conversational topic, I feel like the overtime rules of so many other sports are like the pinnacle of sport and so entertaining. Like, I think shootouts are amazing. Right? Like,
in hockey and soccer?
Yeah, hockey and soccer. It's awesome to see like that process develop, and I think that if you were to develop something that more closely mirrored that, it would be both more entertaining and more fair. I think is what I'm trying to say. In fact, that's the only part of soccer that's really entertaining, if you're totally honest, is that like here's a shootout. Oh, fine, somebody's gonna win.
What's funny about people who like shootouts, and by the way, as a soccer player, I love shootouts, but most people who play hockey and who play soccer hate shootouts. Most fans also hate them because you play the game and then you go down to just like this.
Yeah.
To a different game.
Yeah,
it's a different game. It is a different game.
And I'm with Joel on that one. Like, you had your chance. You had your overtimes. You had your whatever. You played for you couldn't determine it under normal circumstances because of whatever. You're too evenly matched. So in that instance, we're going to go down to an absolute fraction of opportunity in order to make a final decision.
So I want to say, because chat's kind of blown up about this, I'm probably in favor of keeping the playoffs the same in the regular season, but I do think, like hockey, changing it in the playoffs, I think, is huge. Like, we're all going to be sitting here having the exact same conversation if the Bills win the toss. That's crazy. So you're basically saying it's a coin toss and that's who wins when it comes to the way those 2 teams were playing at the end of the game. No one was going to make a stop, or if they're going to make a stop, let them at least try. Like, both defenses and both offenses should have to do their job in overtime.
Yeah.
I think people were frustrated because you saw Josh Allen come back and do some incredible things. And I think there was just sort of an underdog mentality. I wanted to see the Bills win because I wanted One, because I was bitter about the Packers losing, but I thought it would have been even more historic of a divisional round if every home team would have lost.
Yeah.
And we were one game away from that happening.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I say this as, the going through the evolution of a sport that I'm a part of. The tiebreaker at the end of a set of tennis is absolutely necessary. And I know, I mean, it's essentially a smaller version. It's the same thing. It's kind of a shootout mentality. But the reality is, like, playing the true fifth set, which is where you have to win by 2 games. I know John doesn't know how to keep score, but you have to win by 2 games. About a bunch of years back, there was a Wimbledon match where they had to play the match for 2 days. And it was a celebration of mediocrity. None of the guys was good enough to win 2 games in a row. And so they played an 18-hour match where the fifth set score was like 75-73. And it wasn't good for anybody. Like, it wasn't good for the sport, wasn't good for the players, wasn't good for the tournament. Like, let's try to find a way to cut this off earlier. Yeah, Wimbledon was playing the true fifth set, and now it's over because of that match. Ugh.
At least that made tennis somewhat bearable.
I agree with you. Yeah. I'm saying absolutely 100%. Like, it shouldn't be that long. They already played for 5 hours. Now they have to play for 17 because everybody's too trash to, make it happen. Anyway, moving right along.
A Florida teenager started a petition to move the Super Bowl to Saturday from Sunday, and it already has 100,000 plus signatures. Now, I don't know how change.org works and how these petitions work and how you share them and what happens who signs them. I have no idea what the purpose even of those are, but it's interesting and it's been in the news. Joel, I ask you, should the Super Bowl be played on Saturday instead of Sunday?
No, take Monday off work or don't go into school. We've done this for years. And I get like the Super Bowl on Saturday thing and the idea behind it of like, oh, like then you have Sunday off and, whatever. But that Sunday's just going to be a letdown because you know what you want to do after the Super Bowl? If you actually have to go into work or do something, it makes that Monday bearable. It makes it something fun. I get to go in and talk about it with people. I get to, and if I don't want to go in, I call into work. Sick. Don't go to school. But like that Monday after the Super Bowl, and you just don't get that same feeling when there's a Sunday in between it. You don't. This is preposterous. I don't even need the full time to talk about it. John, what do you think?
So the only reason I'm for it is that is the practicals. And the only reason I'm against it is that I love like Super Bowl Sunday sounds better than Super Bowl Saturday. And maybe it's just because it's all I've ever known, but that it's Super Bowl Sunday. It's Super Bowl Sunday. Fine. So I do think that one of two things needs to happen. Either it needs to be moved to Saturday, and it needs to be moved to like 4:00 Central Time, right? Because it's ridiculous. This goes back to what I said last time we were on the show about college football, and the national championship for basketball and for football ends at like 11:00 at night Central Time, midnight Eastern. It's insane. It only benefits like 4 states by having it at that time. And it's ridiculous, and nobody can watch it, and everyone's tired the next day. So at minimum, move it to Saturday and put it at a time when families can watch it and hang out and go to bed at a decent hour. And then you can just enjoy Sunday, go to church with your family, wait for football to start back up again. Or make Monday a national holiday and give everyone the day off and give them off school so you can hang out and have fun.
That's amazing. Just while we were having this conversation, I thought of a couple things off the top of my head that would be more worthy of a national conversation than moving the Super Bowl. One of them is we should go to the metric system. That would solve a lot of problems on a global level. Daylight savings time is useless and costs, hours. And
it does.
Daylight savings doesn't make any sense anymore because we're no longer an agricultural powerhouse that we once were, where it made sense and was necessary. And then we can move on to changing the day of the Super Bowl.
Wait. And then after that, can we go to a 4-day work week? Because that just fixes this all as well.
Yeah, we can do that. But I do have to side with Joel on this one. That's kind of like, you can save a vacation day for the Monday after the Super Bowl if you're going to treat it like that level of holiday. Also, we should move Christmas to always be on a Friday because then, you can just...
Hey, careful.
The
UNCCB already does stuff like that. oh, this holiday, this holy day of obligation, this celebration, this feast is on a Thursday. Just move it to Sunday.
We're gonna move it. Yeah, summertime, wintertime, leave it all the same. Justin Herbert threw for 4 kilometers.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as good.
Not at all.
No.
I agree with you. All right. So here we go. Firing successful playoff coaches.
So, John, after this wild card weekend, Jerry Jones, the prolific frontman, the lead singer for the Dallas Cowboys, he's not even an owner. He is the star. Was not committal to Mike McCarthy, who is a successful coach for all intents and purposes in the NFL, who had a pretty successful run with the Cowboys in his second year as coach there, with a pretty talented team, but he wouldn't commit to him. So this conversation's kind of come up. I've heard of McCarthy. I've heard it with Cliff Kingsbury, who's the coach of the Arizona Cardinals. What do you do with playoff coaches, successful playoff coaches who fail to live up to the high standards the team has set? Do you fire them?
So this is tough because it's tough because it feels like every single team is different and their situation is different. So and I hate to put wins on QBs. I hate to call them QB wins, right? This whole Stafford finally winning 2 and playing out of his mind. And everyone's like, oh, now we can say he's elite. Like what? Everyone who's watched him knows he's been good forever. I don't like to put a win on a coach either. But the coach is responsible for the entire game plan of the team. And so I guess I understand it a little more than with QBs. The Lions fired Jim Caldwell after 4 seasons, 2 playoff appearances, and almost a playoff win. And he had a winning record. That for the Lions, bro, and he got fired so that someone could bring in their guy. So I don't know. Like, I think it goes team to team for me. McCarthy, I think objectively underperformed in Green Bay and should have won more. And so I get Dallas wanting to let him go. Although literally Jerry Jones, the night that they lost the playoffs, said he's committing to him next year. So the fact that he's backing out on that is crazy. Kingsbury has had a really rough second half of like every season he's coached, including playoffs. So that's tough. I maybe let him go. Firing LaFleur in Green Bay after winning 13 games 3 times in a row would be insane. So I think it goes, I'm going to take it team by team.
Yeah, I don't think LaFleur is going to get fired in Green Bay. I think that one of the challenges is that there are just some teams with entitled fan bases. And I'm a Packer fan. I would say the Packer fans are an entitled fan base. Like, I get that it sucks that you've had 30 years of great Super Bowl play and 2 Super Bowl wins. It breaks my heart. Buffalo Bills fans watch their team go to the Super Bowl 4 years and lose every year. That sucks. Like, right. But at the same time, I think sometimes the calls from a fan base are what influences management's decisions. I think Jerry Jones hears that. He knows it's a business. And I think it's kind of ridiculous. Like, when you have a successful coach, I think the Caldwell example is a great example. You have to give people time to build a culture and give them the tools to win. And over time, you have to kind of have the right expectations for every team. But I think you're going to have these legacy teams like the Packers, like the Cowboys. I think that even, the Cardinals had this perception because they started 7-0 that they needed to end somewhere better, where people want to see something like a Super Bowl every year. And it's because we live in the Bill Belichick era. I think like that's a part of it. We've lived in the past 30 years, I guess, with dynasty teams, with the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Patriots, and every fan base wants that. And when they don't get that dynasty team, the calls are like, we'll fire the coach. And I just think it's happening quicker and quicker, where I wouldn't be surprised if Jones fired McCarthy to hire some young stud coach that's like more like a Sean McVay, because that seems to be successful in what the fans want.
Yeah, one thing that's happening too, and you're seeing a lot of these young guns like you're mentioning get these coaching opportunities. I think you're going to start to see a lot of people coaches are not going to get the second chances they used to get. Mm-hmm. Most Cowboy fans were pretty mad when they brought in McCarthy. Like, what are you doing? And they were mad before he even choked twice. So I think you're going to see a lot, like you're saying, more of these young guns get another shot, and a lot of other coaches are going to go to college.
Yeah.
Do you consider getting to the playoffs a success or a failure?
So for the Jaguars in 2 years, it's a success. For the Lions in a year or two, it's a success. But if you don't win a playoff game within the first 4 years of a coach being there, you're failing.
I think part of that, what makes that tough too, is because the wild cards, with the wild card round expanded, like we're getting to a point where I think it's almost half the league has the potential to be in the playoffs. And so if you're in that upper echelon of teams, when you make it in, if you're consistently getting in, I think that there is a conversation to be had about your ability to win in the playoffs. But
right. And it is interesting to see it expand as well. I mean, it's not like hockey where like everybody makes the playoffs. So
it is getting closer to that.
Then you're at a point where it's like, well, if you're not winning the championship, then you're considering it a failing, season. And so as they expand that to try to make more money off of more games and more teams to give everybody a chance, even though it might not really be a chance, you're right. It does kind of change the definition of success. All right, moving on. March for Life.
You go ahead.
I was going to say, so John, in Washington, D.C., the March for Life is going on. And the March for Life went on. It happened. And every year, this is a big pro-life march that occurs where hundreds of thousands of people descend on Washington, D.C. Very few people cover it as a media event. And they march for the repeal of Roe versus Wade as the law of the land. Give me your thoughts on this giant pro-life march.
Okay, so it should come as no surprise to people in the chat, even though we don't necessarily talk about a lot of controversial things. We do talk about quite a bit here on the Bearded Blevins channel, that I'm Catholic, and therefore I believe in the church's teachings on everything, including protecting the sanctity of life from conception until natural death. So I'm pro-life in every way. And I love the pro-life march, the March for Life in general. I love the idea behind it, and a lot of people that go to it. And for years, I've had an issue with it in general, because I think a lot of people use it as like a trip to take, just a field trip, and maybe they try to use it as like an evangelization tactic, and that feels kind of cheap or weird. But nonetheless, I think it's important, right? There are a lot of abortions happening all of the time, and a lot more we can be doing as a church to be resources for women, for couples who are considering abortion. And the March for Life is one way that we can vocalize and show the world that we can peacefully protest against something that we think is pretty horrific. So the March for Life, I think, is needed. And I personally think it actually needs to be a little bit more disruptive. They kind of do like a short march where they go from one location to another. They kind of shut down, the area in Washington where people are going to do it. There's a lot of security there to make it safe, which that part, fine, great. But I think it doesn't get a lot of news coverage. It doesn't get a lot of media coverage because it is a pro-life thing, and a lot of the media outlets might not be. And so I think it needs to be a little bit more disruptive, peaceful still, but block a highway for a while so that it makes the news and we can try to have some change.
I think one of the things that, as we've done the March for Life so many years, I think one of the things I would love to see is for the groups that go to do more in their local communities. And I'm sure that there are some that do. They're sure that I have no doubt that there are groups that go that are engaged in advocacy, that are engaged in crisis pregnancy centers. They're doing those things, that are lobbying their state officials. But if we've seen anything on this front, it's the impact that the local government can have on these bigger, national federal issues. And I just worry that there are some groups that it's just becoming, like John said, more of a, like, let's go and let's be there for that weekend. And then we put in our time. When we're talking about the pro-life cause, especially, the pro-life cause as it relates to abolishing abortion, it really comes down to sustained work, sustained effort, sustained conversations, lobbying, and voting for the right people in office, and making sure that they are respecting your interest as a constituency. We've had periods in this country where there have been groups of people in Congress that could make an impact here and chose not to. And I think that we need to start holding those folks accountable as well. But it happens on the local level because that's where those folks feel it. And I worry that this is a one-time event when it's got to be a year-round mindset. And I think that's where the challenge in having big events like this can come. It's important to demonstrate, it's important to be heard, but it's also important to continue that moving forward.
Yeah, I think you have to either just do live it all the time and be resources for people and help people, right? So that you don't even have to abolish it. It just goes away because of a change of heart. But if that's not happening, doing a peaceful protest is a good thing. You look at all the protests that have happened over the last 15 years, right? That make the news. People are and no one is typing in what about ambulances and things like that. You can let ambulances in. There's ways to do it, but you have to do something to get the attention out there more. Otherwise, it just kind of becomes a pro-life party, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny that chat brought that up because that's exactly was my viewpoint when I spoke with John about this earlier. Where I'm all for disruption, and I think that like a minor inconvenience is not that big a deal. But I do think that like I think it's dangerous when you take stuff to like I'm gonna block a highway, and I don't know what it is in me. With Absolvo, I'm the same way there, where like you block a highway and I'm automatically against whatever your cause is, because I don't think it's necessarily the way to do it. But I will say from that perspective with you guys that I do think that there probably needs to be more of a push at a community-driven level, where I appreciate that it happens and that it gains some awareness, and I would hope that that same group of people then goes back and affects change in a realistic way within their own families, mindsets, parishes, communities, that isn't, just kind of yelling into the void. Okay, and finishing it off for the evening here on Pardon the Intercession, theological impact of life on Mars. Let's really take it to the sci-fi realm. What do you say, fellas?
I like it.
So Joel, you saw an article about theological implications for life on Mars, because you and I are nerds and love to have fun conversations. We've talked about this even before. I don't know if you remember some of our fun conversations because we've had so many over the years. What are your thoughts? Like, what does it mean if they find life on Mars? Do we baptize them? Do we not? Do they have souls? How do we figure that out? What do we do?
Well, I was thinking from a much more basic standpoint, because as they've been looking at like rovers and things like that, they're finding evidence of carbon on Mars, which would indicate potentially that there was life there. So what does that mean? Because I think if you expand that, this is a little crack, but like, what does it mean if you find that there was bacteria or plant life even, or maybe even more complex life on Mars? What does that look like? And I think the bigger thing is, what if it's not life that exists now, but what if it's life that existed a long time ago? What if you find a skeleton of a complex mammal-like animal? I think the theological implications, I don't know that there's Jesus Christ became human and redeemed humanity. So I think there's a whole big theological argument of like, is this all of the universe? Because that's what we've said, but the known universe included all of humans, like that Jesus Christ redeemed all of the universe. But did Jesus redeem aliens? Does God have a different relationship with aliens?
Did he need to?
Is there a different story with aliens? Do they have their own salvation history? I think those are sort of the nerdy things. I don't know. I don't know that I have a conclusive answer. John, what do you think?
I mean, this is where I love this, because I could just go down any rabbit hole, especially with you. I mean, this is so fun. But like, so I think my first question is, right, like, let's say that there is a sentient being that is not like, it's not a chimpanzee, it's not an elephant, it is a sentient, like human-like being, right? Does it take anything away from our story, our salvation history, if there was no original sin and if God made them?
No,
like,
I don't
if they
think
didn't
so.
Like, and is there a chance that like they just didn't originally sin and they're out there just chilling in perfection already?
Yeah. I mean, like, and I think that the same, oftentimes we think about like, and I guess it makes sense because if an alien species, we encounter them and they've come to us, it is like very probable that they are not friendly. Like anybody that is discontent with their own world and is like, let's go out to other worlds. Heck, that's oftentimes people that's humans, right? Like, let's go find us some new place. Hey, there's people here. Let's fight them. This is our spot now. It's probably not good, but like, let's say we encountered them. Like they might be like, oh yeah, they could be just chilling in a perfect state of union with the Lord. And then we would show up and probably ruin it. Like that would be we'd be the serpent. Think about that. What if we're the serpent in their origin story? We show up and we're like, you're obedient to the authority on this planet. That doesn't seem right. Check out the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah. So C.S. Lewis did write about this, which is hilarious, but let's take it a step further on something he did not write about. Let's talk about Superman real quick. Superman shows up here, right? Marries a woman. He's from another planet. He's an alien. They have children. Can you baptize Superman's children?
Yes.
Why?
Because they are partially human.
This is amazing. Can you baptize Superman?
I guess here's the thing. I think yeah. If he believes in the faith, then yeah, you can baptize him.
This is amazing.
Why?
You'd have to ask, is he valid matter?
What would be the
Because
argument against it?
that he wouldn't be valid matter, that he's not human.
Yeah,
That's what
that or
baptism
that.
is.
Yeah, and like, I mean, listen, I love watching the new Superman show on CW. I haven't seen him sin yet, so there's a chance that he just hasn't sinned. Doesn't have original sin. I mean, he's not, Adam and Eve weren't his parents.
Sweet. Sounds good. All right. Well, we're going to catch that next week. And just a reminder, this is mostly for the YouTube content at this point, that we are live at 8 p.m. Central on Tuesday nights. We alternate between Pardon the Intercession and Around the Halo. And both shows include, of course, Chasing Humility and Bearded Blevins. But we do have a couple of guests for Around the Halo that rotate through. And we do it a little bit more of a rapid fire point system. That is also entertaining and a lot of good conversation. So feel free.
It's a game with winners and losers, whereas this show just has 2 losers.
Yeah, exactly.
Thus making me a winner.
Correct.
As always, if you guys are liking the content, please feel free to spread the word. Obviously, we're doing a lot of stuff on this channel. Between our daytime gaming streams and then the shows we're doing on Tuesday nights, and then there's a bunch of stuff coming up that we have with Seek and Focus and all kinds of things. So we're kind of all over the place in a very good way, trying to change the world. So if you'd help us out, we would certainly appreciate it. And the YouTube channel for Little Flower Media is up now as well, and is going to have the episodes and the clips as we move forward from the Tuesday night shows.
Joel, it's a blast, bro.
So good.
Good stuff.
I'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Yes,
everybody.
we'll see you next week. See y'all.
Appreciate it.